April 1945. A makeshift prisoner of war camp somewhere in occupied Germany, days after the collapse of the Eastern Front. The air carries the acrid smell of diesel fuel mixed with damp earth. Lena and Anya stand among 40 other German auxiliary women, their uniforms caked with mud from weeks of retreat through rain-soaked forests. They've walked over 300 kilometers in 14 days. The canvas processing tent offers no comfort. Guards stand at each corner, rifles slung across their shoulders. Sergeant Harris, a tall American with weathered hands and tired eyes, enters without ceremony. No interrogation table, no chains, just a simple instruction that freezes every woman in place. Remove your boots and socks. Silence. Then nervous glances exchanged between prisoners. Lena's heart pounds against her ribs. In war, vulnerability means danger. Feet exposed, balance compromised, escape impossible. She's heard the stories, whispered accounts of what happens to captured women. Her fingers tremble as they reach for her laces. Anya, younger at 23, hesitates longer. She spent 6 months as a communications auxiliary, running messages between Wehrmacht units. Her boots haven't been off in 9 days. She knows what lies beneath the rotting leather, swollen flesh, broken skin, the unmistakable stench of infection spreading through tissue starved of air and light. One by one, the women comply. Boots thud against wooden planks. The smell intensifies, a nauseating mixture of gangrene, putrefaction, and human suffering. Some feet emerge grey and bloated. Others reveal angry red wounds, weeping clear fluid. Lena's condition is particularly severe. Severe eczema has transformed her feet into landscapes of cracked tissue and exposed nerve endings. Every step for the past month has been agony. She expects mockery, perhaps punishment for being weak, for allowing herself to deteriorate. The propaganda had been clear. Americans are barbaric, savage, especially toward German women. Revenge for Allied losses would be swift and merciless. Yet Sergeant Harris doesn't sneer. He doesn't laugh. His expression remains neutral, professional, almost concerned. "Medical officer," he calls out. A young man enters, Dr. Thompson, barely 20 years old, fresh-faced, despite the exhaustion etched around his eyes. He moves methodically down the line, kneeling before each prisoner, examining feet with careful precision. No disgust crosses his features, no contempt, just clinical assessment. When he reaches Hannah, a 31-year-old former teacher turned auxiliary, he pauses longer. Her feet are catastrophic, skin peeling away in sheets, yellow pus oozing from fissures that extend deep into the dermal layers. The infection has spread to her ankles. Without treatment, sepsis is inevitable, perhaps days away. Dr. Thompson stands, turns to Sergeant Harris. "We need to start immediately. Antibiotics, clean bandages, disinfectant. All of them." Lena watches this exchange with confusion bordering on terror. Why waste precious medical resources on enemies, resources that could treat American soldiers, Allied personnel, liberated prisoners from concentration camps? The logic makes no sense within the framework she's been taught for years. Anya whispers beside her, voice barely audible. "They're going to help us." No answer comes, because neither woman understands what's happening. The world they knew, built on hatred, division, clear lines between us and them, is beginning to crack. And it starts with their feet. Hannah sits motionless on a wooden bench, her damaged feet extended before her like evidence of a crime. The tent's single kerosene lamp casts harsh shadows across her face. She's 31 but looks 50, hair prematurely grey, eyes sunken from malnutrition and stress. Her hands grip the bench edge so tightly, her knuckles have turned white. Dr. Thompson kneels before her, a metal tray beside him containing instruments she recognizes, scissors, tweezers, gauze rolls. But there are other items too, glass vials filled with clear liquid, tubes of ointment with English labels, packets of what appear to be sulfur drugs, medications the German Medical Corps abandoned weeks ago when supply lines collapsed. He speaks to her in broken German. "This will hurt, but necessary." Hannah nods. Pain is familiar. She's endured it for months, the constant burning sensation of eczema spreading across her soles. The stabbing agony when fabric touches raw tissue, the sleepless nights when even the weight of a blanket feels unbearable. What she hasn't experienced is hope that the pain might end. The doctor begins cleaning the wounds. His movements are methodical, almost gentle. He removes layers of dead skin with surgical precision, revealing the angry infection beneath. The smell intensifies, a fetid odor that makes nearby prisoners turn away. Hannah expects him to recoil, to hand her off to a subordinate, to treat this task as punishment duty. Instead, Dr. Thompson continues working. He irrigates each wound with antiseptic solution, applies antibiotic powder directly to the deepest fissures, wraps her feet in fresh bandages with a careful tension, tight enough to protect, loose enough to allow circulation. The entire process takes 23 minutes, 2 times daily, he says, pointing to the bandages. Clean. New medicine. Understand. Hannah stares at him, searching for mockery in his expression, finding none. Why? The word escapes before she can stop it. Dr. Thompson doesn't answer immediately. He finishes securing the bandage, then looks up at her directly. Because infection doesn't care about uniforms. Lena watches this interaction from 3 meters away, her mind struggling to reconcile reality with ideology. For 7 years, she's absorbed Nazi doctrine like oxygen. Jews are subhuman. Americans are degenerate. Enemies deserve extermination, not compassion. Yet here stands a young American doctor, exhausting precious supplies on a German auxiliary whose army recently tried to kill him. The cognitive dissonance creates physical nausea. She wants to believe this is manipulation, a psychological operation designed to weaken German resolve, to make prisoners compliant through false kindness. But the evidence contradicts the theory. These medical supplies are real. The antibiotics are genuine. The care being administered is too thorough, too professional to be theater. Anya receives treatment next. Her eczema is less advanced than Hannah's, but still severe. Deep cracks across both heels. Inflammation spreading toward her toes. Secondary bacterial infection causing yellow discharge. She flinches when Dr. Thompson touches the worst areas, expecting rough handling. Instead, he pauses, gives her a moment to adjust, then continues with the same methodical gentleness. An hour passes, then 2. Every prisoner receives examination and treatment. Supplies never run out. Doctor. Thompson never shows frustration or impatience. When he finishes with the last woman, he stands, stretches his back, and addresses them collectively. You walk tomorrow. Slowly. Pain will decrease in 3 days. Full healing takes weeks. Lena looks down at her newly bandaged feet, clean white gauze instead of rotting leather. The throbbing pain has already diminished slightly. She feels something dangerous stirring inside her chest, something that feels disturbingly like gratitude toward the enemy. Morning arrives cold and grey. Lena wakes on a thin mattress, actual bedding, not dirt or concrete, and for 3 confused seconds forgets where she is. Then memory returns. Prisoner, American camp, her feet. She sits up carefully, expecting the familiar spike of agony when blood rushes to her extremities. It comes, but muted. 40% less intense than yesterday. The bandages remain clean, white, professionally wrapped. No seepage, no fresh blood staining the fabric. Anya is already awake, sitting cross-legged, staring at her own bandaged feet with an expression Lena can't quite decipher. Confusion, shame, something else. They changed the dressings while we slept, Anya whispers. I woke up once. 2 nurses. They were so quiet, trying not to disturb us. Lena processes this information slowly. Nurses providing care to sleeping prisoners, enemies who could slit throats or cause pain, instead offering comfort in darkness. The paradox feels impossible. At morning inspection, Sergeant Harris appears with Dr. Thompson. No roll call, no punishment formations, just another medical check. The doctor moves through their group with the same steady competence, examining each prisoner's progress, adjusting treatment protocols, making notes in a leather journal. When he reaches Lena, she finally speaks the question burning inside her. Why do you waste this on us? Dr. Thompson looks up from unwrapping her bandages. His eyes are brown, she notices. Tired but kind. Waste. The medicine, the time. We are enemies. He considers this while examining her feet. The eczema has improved dramatically. Inflammation reduced, some fissures already beginning to close. He applies fresh ointment before responding. My brother died at Normandy. German machine gun. 3 months ago. He says this without anger, just fact. I could hate you. Would be easy. Natural, even. Lena holds her breath. But I took an oath, he continues, wrapping new bandages with practiced efficiency. First, do no harm. Doesn't say, except enemies. Doesn't say, only Americans. Just, do no harm. The simplicity of this statement breaks something inside her. 7 years of propaganda, complex down sophisticated, appealing to pride and fear and tribal loyalty, crumbles against 4 words spoken by a 20-year-old doctor whose brother she helped kill. Across the tent, Elsa watches this exchange with visible contempt. At 19, she's the youngest prisoner, former leader of the Bund Deutscher Mädel, the League of German Girls. Her feet are in better condition than most. She served in administrative roles, rarely marching long distances, but her ideological commitment runs deeper than eczema. This is manipulation, she announces loudly in German, addressing the other prisoners. They soften us, make us grateful, then extract intelligence or use us for propaganda. Several women nod uncertainly. The explanation makes sense within their training. Americans are clever. This could be elaborate psychological warfare. But Lena remembers Dr. Thompson's hands, gentle when removing dead tissue, steady when applying antibiotics, careful when wrapping bandages. Those weren't the hands of a manipulator. They were the hands of someone who genuinely believed infection doesn't discriminate, that suffering deserves relief, regardless of the sufferer's uniform. She looks at Elsa, then at her own healing feet. For the first time in 7 years, Lena allows herself to question everything she's been taught. The doubt feels terrifying, and necessary. Outside, rain begins falling. Inside the tent, 40 German prisoners sit with clean bandages and antibiotics their own army never provided. The cognitive dissonance becomes unbearable. Something fundamental is shifting. 3 days pass. The routine becomes familiar. Morning examination, midday bandage changes, evening medication. Lena's feet no longer throb with every heartbeat. She can stand without gritting her teeth, walk short distances without leaving bloody footprints. The physical healing progresses faster than she imagined possible. But physical healing brings clarity, and clarity brings questions that ideology cannot answer. Sergeant Harris enters the tent on the 4th morning carrying a folding chair. He sits among the prisoners, not above them on a platform, not separated by barriers, just sits. His presence feels deliberate, purposeful. I want to tell you about Nurse Sarah Mitchell. He begins in careful German, accent thick but comprehensible. She works in the main hospital. You'll meet her soon. The prisoners listen silently. Lena notices how Harris's weathered hands rest calmly on his knees. No weapon visible, no aggression in his posture. Sarah was in Ravensbrück, he continues, concentration camp. 3 years. They tattooed a number on her arm, experimented on her body, starved her until she weighed 38 kilograms. The tent becomes absolutely still. Even Elsa stops her usual fidgeting. American soldiers liberated her last month. She could barely walk, needed weeks of hospital care. Harris pauses, letting this information settle. 2 days after discharge, she volunteered to treat German prisoners, including you. Lena feels ice spreading through her chest. She knows about the camps. Everyone knows, though few admit knowing. Whispered rumors, carefully avoided topics, the official explanation, work camps for criminals and enemies of the state. But the stories that leaked through suggested something darker, much darker. Why? Anya's voice breaks the silence. Why would she help us? Harris stands slowly, knees cracking. That's a question you'll need to ask her yourselves. But I'll tell you what she told me. Hatred is a disease worse than anything affecting their feet. I won't let it infect me too. He leaves. The prisoners sit in stunned silence. Lena's mind races backward through memories now poisoned by new context. The rallies she attended, thousands of voices chanting about racial purity, about eliminating contamination from the fatherland. The speeches promising a 1,000-year Reich built on strength and unity. The training that taught her Jews were parasites, Slavs were subhuman, Americans were weak degenerates. All those words, all that certainty. And now a Jewish survivor treats the feet of women who served the regime that tried to exterminate her. The logic doesn't compute, cannot compute. Yet it's happening. Anya speaks quietly. My father was SS. He never talked about his work. But sometimes he came home smelling like smoke. Chemical smoke. His uniforms had ash in the creases. Her voice cracks. I told myself it was from cooking fires, supply depot work. I needed it to be innocent. Several women begin crying softly, not from physical pain, the eczema is healing. They cry from recognition, from guilt, from the sudden collapse of comfortable lies they told themselves to sleep at night. Elsa remains rigid, jaw clenched, refusing tears. This is exactly what they want, she hisses, breaking us down, making us doubt everything. But her voice lacks conviction now, because doubt has already taken root. Lena looks at her bandaged feet. Clean, white, professionally maintained. Evidence of care from people she was taught to hate. Evidence that perhaps everything she believed was constructed on foundations of sand. The rain outside intensifies. Inside, 40 women confront truths they can no longer avoid. The following morning brings Sarah Mitchell. She enters the tent without announcement, carrying a medical bag worn smooth from years of use. She's thin, preternaturally so, with hollow cheeks and eyes that have witnessed horrors no training manual can prepare someone for. Her nurse's uniform hangs loosely on her frame. She's perhaps 30 years old, but could be 50. Lena notices the number immediately. Blue-black ink tattooed on Sarah's left forearm, partially visible below her rolled sleeve. The digits are small, precise, permanent. A brand marking her as something the Reich considered disposable. Sarah begins her rounds methodically. She checks each prisoner's feet with the same clinical efficiency as Dr. Thompson, making notes, adjusting treatments, speaking minimal German, but communicating clearly through gesture and expression. Her hands move with practiced competence across infected tissue and healing wounds. When she reaches Elsa, the young woman pulls her feet back. I don't want a Jew touching me, Elsa says in German, loud enough for everyone to hear. The tent freezes. Several prisoners gasp. Anya looks mortified. Lena feels shame burn through her chest, not because she disagrees with Elsa's sentiment, but because saying it aloud exposes the ugliness they've all been conditioned to accept. Sarah understands enough German to catch the meaning. She doesn't flinch, doesn't show anger or hurt. She simply stands, walks to the tent entrance, and speaks to Sergeant Harris in English. He nods once. Sarah returns, pulls up a stool directly in front of Elsa, and sits. She rolls up her left sleeve completely, extending her arm so the tattoo is unmistakably visible. A7394, Sarah says in heavily accented German. My name in Ravensbrück. For 3 years this was my identity. Elsa's face remains defiant, but something flickers in her eyes. Uncertainty. They shaved my head, starved me, made me stand naked in winter, while they decided if I was strong enough for labor or ready for the gas chamber. Sarah's voice stays calm, almost conversational. I watched my mother die from typhus. My sister was shot for stealing bread. My father went to the chamber in 1943. The prisoners listen in absolute silence. Even Elsa has stopped pulling away. Every day, I asked God why I survived when they didn't, Sarah continues. Why I lived when millions died. No answer came. Still hasn't. She pauses, looking directly at Elsa. But I decided, if I survived, I would help people. All people. Because suffering doesn't care about race or religion or politics. Infection kills Jews and Germans equally. She reaches toward Elsa's feet again, movements slow and non-threatening. So, may I treat your eczema? Or do you prefer gangrene? Elsa stares at the extended hands, at the tattoo, at the face of a woman who has every justification for hatred, for revenge, for letting German prisoners rot in their own infection. The silence stretches for 15 seconds, 20, 30. Finally, almost imperceptibly, Elsa extends her feet. Sarah works quickly, efficiently. She removes the old bandages, cleans the wounds, applies fresh medication. Her touch is neither gentle nor rough, simply professional. When she finishes, she moves to the next prisoner without another word. But something fundamental has shifted in the tent. Lena sees it in how the women watch Sarah work. The earlier contempt has transformed into confused respect, perhaps even shame. Elsa sits motionless, staring at her newly bandaged feet. Tears stream down her face silently. She makes no sound, but her shoulders shake with suppressed sobs. Lena understands. Because she feels it too. The complete collapse of certainty. The terrifying realization that everything they were taught might be a lie, built on lies, built on mass graves. The ideology that sustained them through war is dying, and they don't know what will replace it. That night, sleep eludes most of the prisoners. Lena lies on her mattress staring at the canvas ceiling, listening to muffled crying from various corners of the tent. The sound is different now, not the panicked sobs of capture, but something deeper, the grief of understanding. Anya sits up eventually, wrapping a thin blanket around her shoulders. "I keep thinking about what my father did," she whispers to no one in particular. "What I pretended not to know." Hannah, the 31-year-old teacher, responds from across the aisle. "I taught children about racial science, made them memorize skull measurements, blood purity laws. Told them Jews were genetically inferior." Her voice breaks. "I believed it. God help me, I actually believed it." Confessions spill forth in darkness, small admissions at first, then larger ones. A woman named Greta admits she reported her Jewish neighbor for hoarding food, a lie that sent the family to a camp. Another, Brigitte, describes working in an office that processed confiscated Jewish property, telling herself it was just paperwork, just logistics, nothing to do with the ultimate fate of the owners. Elsa remains silent through these confessions, but Lena sees her outline trembling in the dim light. Morning brings Dr. Thompson and Sarah together. They conduct joint rounds, working seamlessly as a team. The prisoners' feet are healing remarkably. Most can now walk without severe pain. Some of the lighter cases are nearly recovered. But the medical improvement highlights another transformation occurring. Anya approaches Sarah after her examination. "Can I help?" she asks in broken English, gesturing toward the medical supplies. "Work. I want to work." Sarah studies her carefully, then nods. "Sort bandages. Clean instruments." Within hours, 3 more prisoners volunteer, then 5. They organize the medical tent, sterilize equipment, prepare supplies for the next day's treatments. The work is simple, but purposeful. It gives them something beyond sitting with their guilt. Lena watches this transformation with mixed emotions. Part of her wants to volunteer too, to do something constructive, to prove she's not just a passive participant in horror. But another part remains paralyzed by the magnitude of what they've done, what they've enabled. On the 10th day, Sarah sits beside Lena during evening rounds. She doesn't speak, just sits. The silence feels different from hostile silence, more companionable, waiting. "How do you forgive us?" Lena finally asks in halting English. Sarah considers this for a long moment. "I don't forgive the Reich. I don't forgive the guards or the commanders or the architects of genocide." She looks at Lena directly. "But you're 19, indoctrinated since childhood. You marched in boots until your feet rotted because someone told you it served the fatherland." She pauses, choosing words carefully. "Forgiveness isn't about excusing evil. It's about refusing to let evil define the future. If I spend my life hating every German, the people who murdered my family still control me, still win." Lena absorbs this slowly. "What do we do now?" "You choose," Sarah says simply. "You can cling to the ideology that brought you here. Or you can become something different, better." That night, Elsa speaks for the first time since Sarah's revelation. "I want to help too," she says quietly. "I don't know how to be different yet, but I want to try." Lena looks at her own healed feet, almost completely recovered now, just faint scarring remaining. The physical wounds are closing. The deeper wounds have only begun to surface, but for the first time, healing feels possible. August 1945, 3 months after Germany's surrender. The processing camp has transformed into a rehabilitation center. Lena stands in what was once the medical tent, now a training facility, where former prisoners learn basic nursing skills. Her feet bear only faint scars now, thin white lines across her soles, barely noticeable. The eczema is gone completely. She wraps bandages around a practice dummy under Sarah's watchful supervision. Her technique has improved dramatically. Proper tension, correct angles, efficient use of materials. Sarah nods approval. "You have steady hands," Sarah says. "Good for medical work." Lena still struggles with English, but understands more each day. She's been studying at night, determined to communicate directly rather than through translation. Words matter, precision matters. Anja works in the supply room, cataloguing medications and equipment destined for German hospitals. The Allied occupation government is rebuilding the medical infrastructure destroyed by war. Former prisoners who prove reliable receive small responsibilities, then larger ones. The transformation isn't universal. Some women cling to old beliefs, whispering that this is all temporary, that Germany will rise again, that the Reich's vision was correct even if the methods were flawed. These women are transferred to different facilities, separated from those actively choosing change, but most stay, most work, most confront the reality of what they supported. Hannah teaches now, not racial science, but basic literacy to displaced children in a nearby refugee camp. She arrives each morning carrying slates and chalk, her healed feet allowing her to stand for hours without pain. She tells Lena the children are her penance, not enough to balance the scales, but something. Elsa volunteers at a facility housing concentration camp survivors. The work is brutal emotionally. She faces daily reminders of what her ideology enabled. But she persists. She cleans bedpans, changes dressings, sits with the dying. She rarely speaks, just works with grim determination. One afternoon, an elderly Jewish woman asks Elsa why she's there. Elsa tells the truth. "Because I was taught to hate you, because I believed it, because I need to see what my hatred created." The woman studies her for a long moment, then says simply, "Then keep looking." And remember, in September, Lena receives an assignment, travel to Nuremberg as part of the medical support staff for the upcoming trials. Thousands of people will converge on the city, prosecutors, defendants, witnesses, journalists. They'll need healthcare infrastructure. The Allies are recruiting Germans who've proven trustworthy. She accepts immediately. The night before departure, Sarah gives her a small leather journal. "Write what you learn," she says. "Tie it not for me, for yourself, so you never forget what happens when ordinary people accept extraordinary evil." Lena opens the journal. The first page contains a single sentence in Sarah's handwriting. "Healing begins when we stop defending what we did and start understanding why we did it." At Nuremberg, Lena works in the medical wing, treating everyone from court officials to imprisoned defendants. She sees Goering, Speer, Ribbentrop, men whose names once commanded reverence, now looking diminished in prison clothes. She treats their ailments without judgment, the way Dr. Thompson and Sarah taught her. During testimony about the camps, Lena sits in the gallery on her day off. She hears numbers that seem impossible: 6 million Jews, millions more Roma, homosexuals, disabled people, political prisoners. She sees photographs of emaciated corpses stacked like cordwood, film footage of gas chambers disguised as showers,